Last week when we spoke to you,
Hey, Chris.
You, Coach Norvell, others spoke about the explosive capability of Louisville, what they could do offensively if they were allowed to, all of those things. I presume you reiterated those points over and over to your team. So when you hit the field Saturday and you allow that kind of stuff, why do you think there's a disconnect between what you're explaining and telling and what's actually happening?
Well, I think right now, Chris, we've got, to develop obviously more consistency within playing well, whether that's putting the guys in the right place, whether when the guys are in the right place playing with the right technique, whether it's just defending better, everything that's happening to them, to our response. There's been times this year that I've been really proud of our responses. But sometimes, on defense, it's always like if you've got 11 guys and 2 guys don't do their job, sometimes the ball doesn't find them. It just seems like the ball's finding everything that is wrong gets exemplified when you're not playing well, and so the lessons are there. We're trying to teach them. We've got multiple guys on individual plays that it may find, but just, obviously we knew Louisville was an explosive team. They hadn't been explosive, and we allowed that to happen. And when you show them the film, you show them that it's not just because they're better than you, right? It's this happened, that happened. You explain the why. And then at one point, it's like, okay, this is happening. Do you know what you were doing? Yes. And there's, sometimes there's no more why. It's like this play happens because this happened to us. And this was our reaction. So we got to develop a lot more consistency in those moments, whether it's just the moment for each individual player or it's the momentum of things happening and players looking around like, okay, I need to fix this, so let me do X, Y, and Z, and then it creates more issues, and it's the overall teaching, it's the overall development, it's the overall execution, it's all of it.
Next will be Kurt Weiler from Tallahassee Democrat.
We talked to Emmett for the game. He said something to the effect of he thought some guys maybe were kind of freestyling, maybe trying to make a play rather than just kind of stick to their responsibilities. I guess, do you agree with that assessment? And is that something where guys have to kind of see success to see, oh, this can work, we always do what we're supposed to do?
Well, Kurt, Emmett was one, and he, there's times that he went and made some plays Saturday where he did his job, and then the ball hits, and then you chase the ball and you create effort plays. And that happens on defense too. It happens in offense and defense. Plays are designed to work a certain way. Those plays are designed that you fit everything the right way. And then when the ball has the ability to go somewhere else, now you get off your blocks, you chase, and you make plays that are maybe outside of your job. But when the play's happening, especially on defense, on offense it's kind of a one-on-one here and there. But on defense, if you're going to build a wall and run defense, or you're going to match up in man or zone coverage, all the pieces need to fit together. When one piece gets out of place and a good player finds that mistake, it creates big plays. And the worst thing about big plays is that you don't make them snap the ball again, and you don't give yourself another opportunity to play better. And that happened Saturday. There were obviously way too many explosives for multiple different reasons, but some of those reasons were, listen, this is my job. This is going to happen. Coach, I know this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go help this guy. And next thing you know, their primary job becomes the primary reason there's an explosive. So, you hate learning lessons by failure, but sometimes that's happening right now.
Next will be Pat Vernon from Osceola.
Hey, Coach, as you mentioned,
Pat.
the big plays have been an issue this year. Do you do anything as different as coaches on the defensive side of the ball to reinforce players playing discipline and within their responsibility? And is there any, do you consider simplifying or cutting down on the number of things you're asking these guys to do?
Yeah, well, Patrick, we, during the course of practices, and I truly believe this, there's a D-line that can make a mistake, there's a linebacker can make a mistake, but most explosives fall in the secondary. When things don't get fit up right, there's still post defenders or safeties that can converge on the ball and get the ball ground. So that needs to happen better, with whatever safeties are on the field. And then during practice, if an explosive were to happen, sometimes you reload the play and you put the emphasis on the individual that made the mistake or just the total convergence of the defense to get it fixed. So, there's continued, emphasis on making sure those plays don't happen, and then when they do happen, about converging on it, and don't allow a misfit to create a 60-yard play. It should be a 15-yard play. And, you know, the secondary is in charge of getting that done.
Perry from Hot Nation.
Coach, you mentioned last week that this season like a book, and that each game is a chapter, and that each lesson is gained from each chapter. It was much more complicated than I can explain because it was very smart. But basically, at this point of the season, where do you think you are in that book? What chapter? Like, what is the message right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going into the next game, you know what I mean? So you try to learn through success and failure, Perry, and we all know that. But, I mean, we're super inconsistent, you know, and, you know, it's whether it's the run game or the pass game right now, whether it's the pass rush, whether it's zone coverage, you know, and, you know, we're putting guys in different spots. We're continuing to try to work it out, but still, you got to rely on some sort of foundation so that they can fall back upon it, so they can play fast. Because if you're asking them to do things they're not comfortable with, they don't have reasons why it's happening to them. You know, right now we're trying to stick with a plan and saying this call may not be perfect for every play, but you know how to execute it. And then it's about finishing the execution and making some one-on-one plays. And, you know, it's not that simple, but it's that simple sometimes, you know, and we're trying to convey that message. You know, nobody's excited when they don't make the play, but there's some ownership on finishing it. You know, we got to continue to develop that ownership because at the end of the day, it's our defense, you know, and we represent this university and how we play. And right now we're not holding up our end.
Next will be Irish FL from Warcamp.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Ira.
Coach Norvell said this, and I hope I'm not misquoting, but it sounded like he was saying that even when guys have been in position, there have been cases where they haven't trusted the fundamentals. Could you kind of explain what exactly that means and how that manifests?
Well, I mean, that was his quote. I think probably to summarize what he means is, you know, whether it's a one-on-one in the throw game or the pass game, obviously there's a technique to make multiple plays, whether it's tackling, whether it's leveraging the ball when it bounces outside your gap, whether it's getting your eyes back when you're in phase on a ball and pass coverage, you know, and just, you know, when the moment happens, you know, I mean, there's been times when the moment happens, we've seen guys go and make plays, and we like to make sure they understand that because that's what the expectation is. You know, there were times as poorly as we executed Saturday where Emmett Rice chases a guy down because, you know, one guy didn't do his job, the ball pops, and then he makes 3 consecutive plays in a red zone appearance. You know, we hold him to a field goal. You know, so there's some just effort plays that people go, not above and beyond, but that's what's expected. Like, in order to stop people, like, you're going to have one guy free in a gap. You're going to have a lot of one-on-one coverages. We'd like to have 2-on-1 every time the ball gets thrown. That's not real. But, you know, I think it's just the fundamentals, but not just the fundamentals, Ira, the confidence in the knowledge that you can do it and you can make the play. And number one, you have to make the play. It's the only way we can stop guys is when, you know, those situations happen, and then, you know, just making sure that the space isn't too large for the players that have to make the play. And that's my job, you know, that when they're in the position that they're absolutely capable of making it, you know, the stop, whether it's the pass or the run, you know, whatever it looks like. So I don't know if I answered you, but, you know, just trying to give you some insight on what he's saying. Because when you see the ball sit there and you see your guy and he's in good position, you just don't want him to pause. You know, you don't want him to outthink the situation. You know, it's you, it's a ball, go get it on the ground, go high, go make the play, you know, however it's got to look. You know, when there's a ball in the air, you're a post player, go pick the ball off. You know, those sorts of things is probably what he's talking about.
We'll go back to Pat from Osceola.
Hey, Coach, did you think the kids played as fast against Louisville as they did against North Carolina? I mean, it looked like, you know, well, I'm not going to say slow, but it didn't look like they were playing quite as fast as they were against North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I know the guys from Louisville looked like they were playing faster than us, comparatively speaking. And, you know, what does that come down to? You know, a lot of the plans are, you know, very similar. We try to build off it. We try not to completely change every week, although we have to, whether it's based on our guys that are available or what the offense is doing. But the speed of the game, Pat, you know, Louisville had some explosive players, so did North Carolina. You know, it just, you know, some of that had to do, you know, you don't want to keep talking about response, but, you know, we got down, whether it was 14-7 or when it went to 21-7, where in the Carolina game, we got up big early. And, I think there was a belief throughout it that, we were going to make the plays, especially with how we were playing early. There was that confidence built. And, you can't fake confidence. It's got to come through success. And, just because you have some success or some failure doesn't guarantee the same emotion the next play or the next series. But we always tell them momentum is as big as the last play. And, that's easy to say. It's hard to believe. And, my job as the leader of the defense is to make sure that I show up every day and show them how to go about their work, regardless of, how people perceive that work to be going. Like, work equals success when done the right way. And sometimes that happens sooner, sometimes it happens later. We all want it sooner, including me. So I can just keep doing my job the best I can and try to inspire these players to do the same.
We'll go back to Ira for one camp.
I know the growth, is not going to be always linear. It's probably never linear. But, after the Notre Dame game, it sounded like the players said they got some confidence, defense players especially, so they got some confidence. Then that showed up in the game against North Carolina. And then to have a setback like this, can you reflect back in your previous stints at different places? I'm sure you've had defenses that have struggled at points early in the season or first year. Is there a commonality to that growth that you see and how that turns around, or is every year, every season, every team completely different?
I think, Ara, there's, you're always trying to learn from past experiences, and then even though it's a new group, and you try to relay those experiences. And, you want to correct the mistakes. You want to show them what it looks like when done well. And you're trying to connect the habits of how they're going about that to the successes they've had. And then when they fail, sometimes it's all about the result, right? It's just they've done everything they can, and next thing you know, the ball's there and they don't make the tackle, or the ball's there and they don't, come free on the blitz, whatever that play is. And I think, as a coach, I try to give them some past experiences. But, at this point where I'm with them and where we are as a staff is whether it's special teams, offense, or defense, we're trying to teach them through the direct experiences that they are having right now. And I think they understand the amount of work that has to go into having success, but the results need to be connected better to that right now. And I've had some past experiences where we haven't played great, and then you gain momentum through. Sometimes that stays throughout the rest of the season. Sometimes it was like it was. There were times in the Carolina game that we played really well. There were times that we weren't. Louisville was less of those times that we executed well. And just happened to be their explosive players found the issue. And those things went for huge plays, which are unacceptable. I got to put them in a better position. And, that's just how it has to be.
Has to be Bob Ferrante from the Osceola.
Coach, I'm curious about Amari Gainer. His role seems to be kind of evolving a little bit here. I know against North Carolina, he played about 10 snaps. Roughly, what were his snaps against Louisville? Just kind of how do you see his role evolving here?
Yeah, I think he played 48 snaps. He played about 75% of the snaps against Louisville. Some of those, most of those were on first and second down. Some were on third down. We didn't have enough third and longs to really get him in the positions that we had designed for him. Here in this week, we're trying to get him involved in some of the other packages too, because it's easy, you want these guys, he's had some success this year because he's played so fast because of the role that we've given him. We want to continue to put him in different spots, but that just isn't a plug and play for him. I don't want somebody to go out there and fail because we haven't put him in a position to have success. So trust me, we are doing everything we can to get Amari and some of the other guys we have that we have confidence in playing as many snaps as they can in the right spots. Amari's one of them.
We'll go back to Ira for the last one.
When it comes to the players' confidence, and I know Coach Norvell has a really open policy about players being on social media and things like that. Do you guys discourage them from listening to some of what's going out there, whether it's former players or fans or media, or do you let them kind of move that on their own?
I give them advice. As a coach, you're a father figure, you're a mentor, you're an uncle. You give advice on everything. And, you try to assimilate, like, you know, people say bad things about everybody. People pat you on the back when you do well. You know, that's part of the wave of what we do, you know. And listen, you want to work at a place where it's really important, you know. So you can't just be in it and say, well, why aren't you supporting us all the time? You know, I mean, yeah, you want support all the time, but I mean, that's not real, you know. If people are passionate about success, they're going to be passionate about failure or not meeting expectations too, you know, and whatever that looks like, whether it's high or low expectations or not, you know, it's all part of it. And we're in a position that you got to respect that, right? And you're not always going to like what people say, but it's not real to tell the players, be closed off from all things outside of this building. I mean, that's not real. That's not going to help them grow either, because that's not real life. And so not embrace it, but understand it. And don't react. The only way you should react is for your own improvement. And, you know, whether it's a negative comment or a positive comment, they're all said with something in mind. And I think we should just appreciate the passion that we have here and deal with it. And, you know, in successful times, it'll be a great place to be. We just got to go through that process to make sure these successful times need to show up.